All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Beyond the White Noise Paranormal Videocast with Stephen Foy and myself, Kurt Logson. Tonight, we are psyched to have on the one, the only Bill Hall. Bill being a magician and a paranormal author at the same time. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on again, guys.
Not a problem, man. I mean, you got carte blanche with us, dude. Sorry. You got definite carte blanche, so tell us what you've been up to.
Well, I just came out with the second book, The Haunted House Diaries, which is exciting because it is an active case. As a matter of fact, the area has been active for, who knows, probably hundreds of years. It actually is an area of Connecticut that takes off kind of near where the Hudson Valley UFO sightings were many years ago. So if you follow that line up, it'll go into this area, and so it's a paranormal flap. And this farmhouse there, 1793 farmhouse, is for lack of a better term, at the epicenter of this. It's got everything. It's almost like a matter of fact, my good buddy Paulino calls it the Connecticut Skinwalker Ranch, because it has just about everything there. Luckily, though, it's not something that is overly negative. It's just more fascinating. So,
what's the history of actually? I don't know how much you go into it in your book, and I do not want to ruin it for people because I can't wait to get a hold of this and read this. But how? What actually? Since it was built, 1793? You said. So you're talking about the late 18th century. So how far? What happened at this house? What kind of history are we talking about in this house that brought about this haunting?
Well, we determined it was really more the land. Certainly, the house being there so many years would have just a better chance at so many different things, of course, happening over the years. But it's not like it started just because there was a horrible murder in there or anything like that. We believe it's that whole land area. It was Indian land. I know that sounds hokey, but this in particular, this area, Mohawk Mountain, for example, is right right nearby. And I brought in a good friend of mine who is, I call him the trifecta, the paranormal. He's Shane Serway. He's Native American. He had a near-death experience, and he grew up in a haunted house. So he's
got it all.
I call him the trifecta.
Sounds like a perfect guest, doesn't he? Should get him on.
Oh yeah, no, he's a great guy. Very honest. Nothing.
No BS.
Yeah, no BS, and talk about sensitive, not psychic, and and that's the, Paul and Ben, they're sensitive to. They don't like to use the word psychic. They don't predict the future. They don't, But again, if you've been around this stuff enough, we all know the mind associates and could identify it again, and that's pretty common and would make sense. But yeah, so he said it's definitely the land, and that.
Well, you think about also. I mean, when you talk about Native American land, I mean, there's so many different tribes that have passed through there. Whether they settled there or not is one thing, but even with the passing through of Native Americans, I mean, you don't know. I mean, what kind of wars went on between the different tribes? Also, you say 1793. I mean, that's pre-war. You're talking pre-war of 1812 right there. So I mean, there's a house like that has stories. People live it. People are born there. People die there, and it keeps rotating. So,
and if you look at where this house is, it's surrounded on three sides by water. So, as Shane was saying, he's saying, they definitely would have came here, because he said different tribes would go and seek out these, these corridors. Now, they wouldn't open them up, but they'd go out and seek out these kinds of areas where they figured they can commune with the spirits, etc., and that kind of thing. And he said this is a prime area that you would that you would go to because of the water. I mean, water is, you know, a natural part of it, but it's also something that we know is common to see around these, you know, houses that have, you know, paranormal things happening. But yeah, but I mean, Donna, the lady who lives in the house with her husband, I mean, there's only been 3 owners in that house as far as 3 families, and her family has lived there for 6 generations, and as far back as anybody can remember, there's been stuff happening there, and it's not just her house; it's houses in that area. They don't have the depth of stuff that she has happening there, but you know, but they all have those kinds of things, and there's UFO activity, there's cryptid, Bigfoot sighting. That area actually is pretty popular for a few of the famous Bigfoot sightings, and yeah, UFOs, ancestors, and non-ancestors, so to speak. Yeah, it's just a variety of stuff happening, and you know, there's even a what we believe is a secret military base that was looked into, and you know, we were told to back off. And
oh, really?
How long ago?
Well, just recently we were told to back off. But
did anyone else notice my kind of conspiracy ears prick up a little bit? Then?
I know. Yeah. I was waiting for Steve to go. I was waiting for Steve to just jump up in his chair. I definitely was on that one. I was like, how long ago to make sure? Steve's like, oh, I know about that. What's it?
Yeah, I mean, and we're not conspiracy people, but I mean, Paulino was chased off there by armed military guards. I also interviewed some other people there, and this is like farmland in the middle.
So we're talking in Connecticut,
Goshen, Connecticut. Yeah.
Why? That's bizarre.
They're going fishing and they're getting chased out by, you know, armed military guards, and now they just fenced that area off, and
it's that sort of behaviour that if you wanted to keep something secret in that area, you don't chase off fishermen who would just out for a normal quiet Sunday afternoon fishing.
I know.
You just let them, just don't say nothing, just keep an eye on them at a distance.
Right?
You know what I mean?
Well, it's the same thing with UFOs. You know, if there's nothing the UFOs, why are you putting out books saying that there's nothing the UFOs? Just be quiet, and you know, those that are going to believe, and those that don't. And the best thing you can do is ignore it, because that shows you don't care about it.
Did you get to? How much time did you spend in that house, Bill?
Oh, quite a lot. You know, the family has adopted me reluctantly, but they really had no choice. No, they're a great family. We had sleepovers, spent a lot of nights there in addition. But we set up cameras. We set up cameras that took pictures that were, you know, in sets of 3s that were by set off by movement, and then also Shane did EMF meters, and he was making sure that there wasn't you know, electrical or some other causes that would make us feel a certain way. Well, and I brought in, you know, Mark D'Antonio was part of it. He's the audio visual expert for the Mutual UFO Network. So he was part of our team too, and he brought his drone to survey the area. Gotta love Mark. And but you know, we called them.
I apologize, Bill. I'm not laughing at you. I'm picturing Moog.
I'm picturing Moog here right now.
Steve and I are like
going jumping up and down, excited. Yeah.
Oh, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
And so Mark, I called Mark. Actually, Mark had a missing time experience in that area, Burr Pond, which is within that paranormal flap area. Of course, you know, you loosely draw where it is because it doesn't really end like right here, and then you make one step. Yeah. You know what I mean? But Mark has had experience there, and also was a nice contributor to the book. Talked somewhat about quantum physics and how he believes, you know, ghosts very well may not be spirits of the dead, and you know, so he did some
dimensional, kind of a dimensional travel kind of deal, and
right, and how his own experience lended him to go more in that way. But the other thing that he did for us, and you know, as Paul had nicknamed him, you know, our resident buzzkill, because Yeah, and he, and here's a guy, because I'm a skeptic from the magic point of view, but again,
Yes.
you need all the different expertise, right? I mean,
You do.
if you don't know if somebody's crazy, you need a psychologist. If you don't know if it's something having to do with the electrical, as we mentioned, a home inspector or somebody who has, those kinds of skills could be very helpful. And if you have photos that you're going to look at, or photos that you've taken, or videos, you have Mark D'Antonio look at it, and he'll recreate it. And if he can't, then it's good to go. And New Page Books plan tentatively on an 8-page color insert, and I'm happy to say that there's a nice 4-page color insert. But I told Mark, I said, do you like my 8-page insert? And he opened the book and he says, well, there's only 4 pages here. I said, yeah, that's thanks to you. but I said, we joke, but so happy he was a part of it, because who wants to put a picture in a book and have somebody who's a photographer say, well, that's a reflection of this or that? So, you not only have to deal with stuff like fraud, I think there's less fraud and more misinterpretation. And, since working with Mark, and I'm no, optical expert, but I probably right off the bat could explain about 80% of all photos with just that limited experience, So when Mark looked at a photo and of this mist thing that passed in front of the house, and we got those photos in the book, and when he said and kept asking questions and could not come to an answer, we eliminated cars going by, eliminated frost, and seeing him go through all that stuff and eliminated him, and seeing him get to a point where throwing up his hands like, I don't know, and
well, it's the I don't knows. Yeah, it's the I don't knows from somebody with that much background, when it comes to photography and audio and stuff like that. Kind of, it's a head scratcher. I mean, you got to admit, it's a head scratcher.
Right.
If you pass the test of a certain person. Everybody has that certain person.
Exactly. Well, the problem is some people don't. I mean, I could have had a great UFO story in the book, because there was supposedly a UFO crash right within that paranormal flap, and so I could have researched it, but instead, of course, it was much easier to just ask Mark, because with MUFON.
Was this area located? I apologize. I don't mean to interrupt you, Bill.
No problem.
I'm thinking back. Is this called part of the Bridgewater Triangle?
No, it's not.
Okay, I'm off then. I'm off with that. Okay, never mind.
Right. No, that of course is an interesting area too. But and asked Mark, and he said no, it was a meteor and it never crashed. It went over the horizon, looked like it crashed. So so it was just really nice. I felt like because this book involved an active investigation, I was very fortunate to have the right people, and I probably couldn't have had anybody better. I mean, who better to look at your audio-visual proof than the expert from the Mutual UFO Network? And then, boy, this guy knows optics. I mean, he's it's incredible. So I was very happy to have that, so that when I put something in a book, at least I can say is, hey, we couldn't figure this out, and it's not going to be something that's going to be easy,
Mm-hmm. We did the best we could do. I mean, you could only do so. You basically can only do so much to prove this is what we have, and stuff like that. And like if I catch an anomaly or something, I can't call it paranormal. I just say it's unexplained. I mean, I can't explain it.
I think if you go through all that rigor and you can't explain it, and it's in an area that has that is having activity, then it gives you a little bit more confidence. If it's unexplainable and it's in a random area that makes no sense at all, I get even more. I doubt myself even more. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Can
we go back and hold on a sec with the Haunted House Diaries? how did you? I mean, this is for our watchers out there that maybe haven't heard you on our previous show. What did you do prior to your involvement into the paranormal? And I think that's very interesting because it lends credence to you to be able to debunk certain things, and you can say, "Hey, hold on a second. This is like it's almost like a sleight of hand trick or something like that."
Right. Just before I answer that, I did see in the chat. Let's see. It is not the same Skinwalker Ranch that books have been written about.
Just about to ask you about that.
Yeah. I just wanted to clear that up. Paulino called it the Connecticut Skinwalker Ranch because it reminded him of that.
Of the real one.
Of the other case, yeah.
Okay.
Or the other place, I should say. So just to clarify that. Well, before that, I mean, years ago as a performing magician, I used to write in 5 or 6 newspapers a syndicated column called Magic and the Unknown, and I would look at these different things and either debunk them or sometimes they couldn't be proven because they were urban legend and just interesting, and other times they had considerable merit. Like the building of the pyramids, not so much how, but the dating and how long they've really been there, and of course UFOs. As a result of that, I actually got quite big into UFOs as a result of going to write an article, and not necessarily disprove everything because I had an open mind, but I certainly wanted to write about things that I can get as close to the original information as possible were available, and if it's not available, just say, well, this is interesting, and who knows, your urban legend or whatever, or here's the proof that we've uncovered, kind of thing. So that was my background. I mean, for example, one of the things I did as a result of that was people would call me, family members who have been spending a lot of money with psychics, for example. And I would go in and help them see that they were fake. And a lot of times the only way to do that, because they wouldn't really listen, would be to go in and they would introduce me as a psychic, and I would.
Clever tactic, that actually.
Yeah, I would do my reading, and then after, and then they'd ask what you think, and usually I did a better job than the person they were paying, because because I knew I was dealing, I knew I had to in order to get it to the right level, and after doing that, I'd say, no, I'm a magician, and I'm just doing this to prove to you this is how it works. So then they would believe it more, and I mean, probably only had about 5 or 6 cases like that, but in every case, the person stopped seeing the psychic. So
I think what you did, Bill, is honorable, because the fact is some of these people have like severe mental issues, and what happens, these psychics get them hooked. I see it in I drive down the street near my house. I'm seeing psychic reading. If I had the money, I'd go in just to mess with them, just out of boredom. But I can't afford to go in there to mess.
Right.
And it's just I'd love to go in there and just lay some sob story on them and this, and have them try to tell me this, and at the end and just say, no, you're wrong, and just get up and leave.
Or like what David Letterman did with I forget the guy's name who channeled. They didn't know that. Oh no, it was Johnny Carson. They didn't know that. Well, no,
was it Carson? I think it was Carson, maybe.
Yeah, Carson was he was an amateur magician, so he knew magic, and he was a lot of trouble for both Uri Geller. He made a fool out of Uri Geller, and
I saw that. I remember.
Oh yeah, it's great.
I remember seeing that.
But the other thing he did, he had a guy on who said he could channel and speak to the dead. And so he said, go ahead and chant. I think it was, he said, my brother or whatever. And so the guy got into this trance and did the whole voice. And at the end, he said, I don't have a brother. Get off my show. But
that is epic.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I do believe that there are people who are quote-unquote sensitives or empath, for lack of a better word, but that's a little bit, I think, different than And and I've known somebody who has premonitions, but they're not controlled. They're not about a specific person. They're not like sit down and give me $25, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's
me and Kurt were talking off air previously, just before, weren't we, Kurt? We come to the same conclusion. We don't dismiss psychics, for want of a better word, completely, because we do believe that there's some gifted people, if you like, out there that are genuine. It's just that it's such an area whereby and a field that's so easily manipulated, especially with the TV shows these days and stuff like that.
Well, like what is it, Caputo or whatever, Teresa Caputo? I watched
the haunting of haunting of
It makes me sick. There's this other guy too. He's very, very famous. He actually did really bad on this talk show. But what gets me about these people, not only are they making so much money, but they're very bad at what they do. I mean, I don't believe you should be doing that anyhow, but if you're going to be conning people, at least have the skill to go with it. And these people do such a bad job. Like Uri Geller's sleight of hand sucks. Really bad. I mean, you could watch a YouTube video and you could see the way he's got it in his hands, and it's right in front of everybody. But they believe, so it doesn't matter. And if you don't believe, he doesn't care because you're not his audience. If you're out to prove him wrong and you can catch him, he doesn't care because you're not part of his market. His market is the people who believe. So he doesn't have to do it well, but I mean he does it so bad. It's like at least Randy, has the skill to pull it off while you're watching him. Geller is just a sleight of hand disaster. I mean,
I look at Randy as being like more of a modern day Houdini in the sense of crashing seances, busting people out, not necessarily being hung over a river and getting out of a straitjacket.
Well, he's done that stuff too in his younger years.
Yeah, in his younger days. But he is like a modern day Houdini in a sense, in his belief of things. And I think they need more people out there doing that, because go on Facebook. Let me use Facebook as an example. I refuse to post anything I catch. If I'm out in an investigation, it goes to Mo or Steve or someone. They get to see it, and I get their opinions, and I just go from there, because I am not going to post anything on Facebook because I see the crap that's thrown out there. Everybody's got a name Medium, Kurt Medium Logston. Jesus, I can make money doing it. I could do I see that you had someone die recently. That could be anybody. I mean, it's just a load of crap, Bill. I mean, it's become that bad with social media that everybody has some sort of supernatural power. And
that's funny, and it's so true. Yeah, it's so true. These people who have never mentioned it before, all of a sudden are like, oh yeah, I was born an empath, and I could predict the future, which they're really not even related necessarily. But and you're like, well, wait a minute, a year ago you weren't that. But the one thing, the one difference with Houdini that I liked is he did keep an open mind. Granted, he went about it the wrong way because, of course, by having people come to him, he's going to get all the fakers and everything. But it would have been cool for him to really spend time in, let's say, like the Lindley Street house where there's a poltergeist, or something where there was real phenomena versus just seeing psychics and seances.
Yeah, spitting up.
Yeah, because all those things are going to be, faked. It's the nature of the beast, but I admired. He was like a lot of magicians are, which is curious and looking for that wonder, and that's kind of how a lot of us are. I thought putting my name on these kinds of books would actually, that some of my magician friends would say, "Oh, look, Billy, he's an idiot now, or he's stupid," but instead, they don't think that way at all. That was just a misnomer in my thinking, a mistake in my thinking, but yeah, I've learned that no, not all magicians are all magicians are skeptical because you know it could be faked, but I think everybody, all the good paranormal investigators I know are healthy skeptics.
Yeah, you have to be. But then you go back to people like Chris Angel, who does, who does his thing, and that guy's, and it's all set up. I mean, everybody's involved one way or another. Somebody's involved with his levitating or his walking over water with his glass underneath. I've seen it. I love to get on the YouTube channels where they get the magician that hides his face and shows how it's all done.
The masked magician fell with the black thing.
Well,
but Chris Angel doesn't say he's real.
No, never does.
Right,
never does.
Right.
Never
Yeah.
does.
And it's cool. And of course,
I like what he does. Don't get me wrong, but
well, no, he's making magic cool for new generations, and that's great.
It's like David Blaine, kind of the same thing, street magician and stuff like that.
Yeah, and but it's and of course there are people who swear that Houdini lied and really had the powers. So it just goes to show you that.
It's easy to say that now because the guy's not here to say he has or he hasn't.
Who's here to defend the poor? I mean,
exactly.
Well, no, when he was alive, people would say that too, and he would tell them no. He would say no. You got me misunderstood. This, but again, people are funny. You'll still get those. Like I told you before the show, I was telling these guys about when I was trying to meet girls in college.
We didn't bring this up, by the way. We want to let people know. This was not a conspiracy between Steve
No, it was not.
Okay.
I'm still trying to meet girls, but anyhow. So, and it's still not working. No, but in psychology class, I did a magic trick, and I thought, this, I'll work with the professor. We're doing a chapter on perception. So I said, what if I do a magic trick and you can say I'm a psychic you've been working with, and then we'll tell him I'm fake, and we'll tie it to perception. So he thought it'd be fun, and so I did it, and I figured I would have a girl that I liked. I figured I'd have her help out, and so I had her help out, and blew everybody away with the trick. I mean, they were sold. It was great. Everything went perfect. Then the professor said, it was a magic trick, and some people were like, oh, that was really cool. That was, and they thought it was neat and stuff. This one girl was scared to death of me. The girl that I liked, that I asked to help out. Even though she was told it was fake, she never spoke to me again for 3.5 years of college. Yeah. Now, people will argue that it's a different reason, but it's not true. That really is no, but that's the reason. It was so real to her, and it was a dynamite trick. It was basically a nut and bolt that was on the table, and she cupped her hands over it, and she heard it unscrewing itself. And when she lifted her hands, the nut was apart from the bolt.
Okay, let's think about this. Can you explain to us how you did that, or is that one of those things that's in your box of tricks you just can't explain?
Yeah. No, I can't do that one for
other reasons. I understand.
Yeah, for other reasons. But suffice it to say, it was a trick, and it creeped her out, and that was it. That was it. So another time, here's another. We lost dates this time too. Me and a magician friend. Yeah, isn't that funny? Yeah, we do these things to impress the girls, and instead it gets rid of them. So we were going on this double date, right? So the girls show up at my apartment at the time, and so we thought it'd be fun. We rig up a Ouija board. We rigged up the planchette with some fishing line. That I can tell you. And so anyhow, so they come in and we're like, we've been playing with the Ouija. We made up the whole story. We made a few noises. We kind of built it up. We had a cassette player hidden, and we're like, what was that? We've been hearing strange noises all day. So I had the whole thing built up, and then they said, it may be because you were playing with that Ouija board, Phil. He's like, oh, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have been. The girls are like, oh, no, you shouldn't. Of course, then we had the planchette fly off the board, and we were like...
that is so awesome.
We thought it was great, so they ran, right out the door. They ran, and we were laughing. We thought it was great until we realized they weren't coming back.
Well, Bill, that story right there probably scared 90% of the people on Facebook that are afraid of Ouija boards. So, good job. Yeah, I like it.
and I'm not saying you should mess around with them. I don't think that they themselves are.
No, it's all in your head. It's all in your subconscious. It's all in, certain people who have mental disorders should not play with certain toys. And I look at that as being basically it. So.
Well, I mean, with what I've come to learn is whether it's a Ouija board or whatever, whenever you're given attention to these things, if you're in an area where, let's say, you were in this house, let's say you lived in this house where Haunted House Diaries is written about, if you were there and you're using a Ouija board, or you're dysfunctional or whatever, you're going to attract in different kinds of things than would have been. Would have been coming in, is what I'm saying.
Oh, I'd do it in a heartbeat. That would be a given for me. I'd be the first one to volunteer to do it. I don't know. I'm just real skeptical when it comes to the Ouija board and stuff like that. And I
don't think it's the board. I think it's just that it's a tool, just like any other tool.
It's no different than you and I going out and catching some EVPs. Same thing. We're still trying to get to the same point. We're just using different tools to do it, and people don't realize that. So
just giving it the attention, yeah.
Yeah.
But so that was that, and then the last story I have is this is many years ago, by the way. This stuff, so I wouldn't do any of this stuff now, but my buddy.
You'd want to.
I'd want to, but I wouldn't. But my buddy owned a 3-family home, and the people on the floor above him weren't paying their rent, and so so we haunted them out. So
how did you haunt them out?
We haunted them out. Well, first we started with stories, so we would be down there talking loud. We knew when they weren't home, we'd go up into, because he had all the keys, we would go into the apartment. And we would see where the sound went best through, and we would know where they're going to hear us very clearly, and we would start with some stories. Did you tell everybody who lives here about the dangers and the thing, especially on the second floor? And we'd go into that. And I went up there, and he drilled a hole. They had a rocking chair and like this plush carpet. Well, this is the 80s. What do you want? And so he drilled a hole in the ceiling.
Okay.
Right where the rocking chair was, and with a hat pin, when you push the hat pin up to the back of the chair, you literally are pushing the runners. You make it rock by itself, right? And then and you could run over to it and pick up the chair and stuff. You're not going to find anything. The other thing we did was we did say he was very good with electrical, so he rigged up some electrical stuff with a remote control, so we were turning stuff on and off, and it was really something else. It was interesting, but they were out in 2 days. They were gone.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't have to evict them, didn't have to go through any procedures. They got their stuff and left. It was great.
Oh, that's awesome. Let's jump back. God, my voice just cracked like a little kid. Oh, my God. I'm not going to admit to that, but too late. It's live. I can't believe that. I wanted to go back to your first book. And I want you to tell us about your first book.
Yes. Well, the Lindley Street case, I was just having coffee one morning, and somebody put on Facebook, does anybody remember the Lindley Street haunted house? And it occurred to me that was something I never looked into. And so I started Googling it, and I was amazed at how many people, were witnesses talking to the press. Police officers, firefighters, reporters, priests, neighbors, friends. I mean, just a lot of people. And I thought for a moment, it it didn't occur to me, okay, well, this is definitely true. I just didn't know, because it was more questions than answers. Of course, a newspaper, you know what I mean? So you don't get the whole story. But, they were talking about a floating refrigerator, and so then you start wondering, well, did it really float, or are they using the wrong word? Was it a shaking refrigerator, not a floating? You know what I mean? I don't know. But there was so many witnesses that I said, whether this is real or fake, there's a heck of a story here. So I wrote down everybody's name. This happened in 1974.
Okay.
And that's where I started calling people, and I ended up getting one of the retired police officers and talked to him about it. He explained his experience, and he explained to me what he didn't put in his police report. He wrote a heck of a police report, him and his partner. They literally said in there that they saw the refrigerator float 6 inches. The original, the police reports are in the book, but it's absolutely incredible. These guys were not, these were not your superstitious type, and they would run over to the phenomena. They wouldn't run away from it in most all cases. And there was just a lot of witnesses. So that's how I got started on it. And then I found Boyce Beatty, who is the original investigator that tried to help the family after it was called a hoax. And he did a number of interviews. Many of them were mandated by the Bridgeport Police Department. So in other words, police department says it's a hoax, and then they mandate their officers, be interviewed by Boyce and his team. And so anyhow, I caught up with Boyce Beatty, who's now like 81 or 82 years old, and I asked him if he had access to the interviews, and he said, I think so. They're in a box in my basement. And I went over his house and left with 30 hours of interviews from all sorts of people, all walks of life. 16 police officers, 13 firefighters, a tutor, 3 reporters, 2 priests, neighbors, other family members that stopped by. It was just
that's a lot of hours of interview credible witnesses and people as well for it to be a fake, or to be a hoax, I should say.
Oh yeah, and none of them were instant believers. Even the tutor, who was I think she was only like 21 or 22 at the time. She was, when you listen to her talk, she's like, well, and when that happened, I was looking to see if anybody was close enough to be able to do anything, but Marcy was behind me. She didn't do it. She would, and so she was going through this logic process in her head. These people were, I'll give you a quick example. This is how, you couldn't ask for better people to be in there witnessing this. Maybe a magician, but I'll tell you, these police officers did as good a job as I would have did. One of the officers goes over to this bureau where a TV was on top of, and it had moved by itself in like a semicircle. And he determined there was dust on top, which didn't speak well of the lady of the house, Laura's house cleaning. But anyhow, there was dust on top. And he noticed that the rungs on the bottom of the TV just made a single, very precise kind of disturbance in the dust as it went semicircle. And he was saying to himself, if this thing was like on a string and pulled, it would have dragged way over it would have dragged the dust and disturbed it all. But it didn't, which means that this thing moved in a semicircle and wasn't pulled. It very precisely moved, So, that's the kind of analysis these people were doing. When the refrigerator floated, these guys tipped the refrigerator. They looked above it. Yeah. They looked below it. And one went in the basement and looked at the ceiling. So, these guys were really, they were trying to figure out what was going on. And
you get cases like this every once in a while, and it's for me, it's the type of cases that add a lot of credibility to the paranormal world, especially because of the extent of the witnesses involved. time period that it's investigated over. I think, am I right in saying that the things happened about 1968 with that particular family, and it was only until like 4 years later they made it public, and it snowballed from there.
Well, that's right. It was going on before that, and and the chief of police backed up the family by saying, they called us in 71 and 72. So, because people were saying, well, The Exorcist came out, so that's why, and the chief was saying, oh no. And actually, the chief himself saw stuff in the house. He didn't want to put his name behind it, but he stuck up for his his
officers.
Yeah, but
if you think about police officers, we'll bring it to more of a modern day kind of deal. Not much more modern, but what I'm going to talk about is the Zach Bagans, Ghost Adventures. I'm sorry, bought the house in Indiana. Supposedly had a demonic. Again, we go demonic, and I call.
He's just bought a camper off someone as well this week.
Yeah, bullshit to that, because they had police officers in there, but it turned out a lot of the police officers that were taking pictures were adding apps to them and everything else like that. So you got it at a good time, Bill, where apps weren't available, and most cops tended to look at things a little different than they do today.
Yeah, definitely no apps. Although when you have real people involved, funny things happen. One officer tries a test, and he gets an answer just by thinking. This officer said, if you're there, you show your presence, and it moved things in the wall, and that's when he knew. That's how he determined in his own mind that despite him not being able to make sense of any of this, that this was the real thing. Because if he's not saying it out loud and it's responding, then he knew that this was something that was beyond, the norm.
Yeah, it sounds very, very similar to the Enfield Poltergeist case over here, and it was around about the same time period as well, I think, in the 70s.
Oh yeah. The only difference, and I do believe the Enfield Poltergeist case is 100% legit. But Lindley Street, it was just bizarre. Just the amount. I'm over 120 witnesses now, and over 26 police officers. Matter of fact,
without a doubt, the Lindley Street case is on a scale is a lot bigger than the Enfield Poltergeist in numbers, certainly from the witness point of view. But it's got the same sort of credible witnesses.
Oh yes, no, definitely, yeah. And I don't believe that. A single mother's got better things to do. If you look, if you look at everything that happened, and but yeah, definitely. What's weird is I was doing a lecture just I think it was either last week or the week before. Time's slipping now with everything being busy, but I was doing a lecture, and there was a retired state trooper that said he was in the Lindley Street house. And so people come out of the woodwork, and he named some of the proper names of some people at the time. A few of them that weren't even in the book because they weren't technically interviewed. So I knew he was telling the truth. Most people are pretty good about that, but it's just really it just goes on and on because it was so public. I think that was what made the case just so interesting.
You'd ever get a lot of people out of riding on the coattails of an investigation like that.
Well, I think the Warrens made it. It was a real big publicity event for Ed and Lorraine Warren, and they did a bad thing where Ed used their phone and made toll calls to get more press there, and the family wanted to be left alone. And granted, you can argue that the Associated Press and Rudders would have ended up there anyhow, but or maybe not, but it certainly would have taken longer. But that wasn't a good thing to do, especially with a poor family and making toll calls in those days. Of course, calls weren't.
Or the Lutz. With the Lutz family, basically. But I think the Lutz family. The Lutz family. They were full. They sold the story to Jay. Was it Jay Anson that wrote it? And
yeah,
I think it's a load. It was a load of crap. It is creepy in the fact that Butch DeFeo slaughtered his family there, but at the same time, I think they couldn't afford the house once they got in, but they saw an opportunity to say, "Hey, we can create this story, sell the story, and and it's just, I think that's what they did."
Yeah, it's I saw a thing on it. It's even questionable whether he killed everybody. Some say that.
There's a second person. Yeah, that was
involved. That the daughter was involved, and then a friend was involved. And,
yeah.
And it was a more complicated story. Of course, it's hard to tell because the kid who's now a guy is a liar and stuff. And anyhow, so still
the Lindley Street case, is it, or is this another case?
We're talking about Amityville.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah,
I know you're talking about now. Sorry, yeah.
Amityville really didn't have the witnesses either, and the big difference with Lindley Street is that family just wanted to be alone. I mean, they never made a penny off of it. In fact, they lost money. They lost basically most of their personal property, and the house was gone. And they were offered money. I spoke to because they had a lawyer for privacy reasons, who wrote to Ed and Lorraine Warren and said, pay back the phone bills and don't use our names in your lectures.
Because even though they did it there, but the Lutz fam, and I'm backtracking to the Lutz family because I was just thinking about that he had his name. Anything that had to do with Amityville, such as a movie, such as anything on TV, he got a cut of it. So right there, it almost sounds like a scam that was planned out early, right after the murder, where they jumped on that house for dirt cheap, and then just took it from there and just, ran with it as much as they could.
Yeah, it definitely is very different from the point of view of you got the one family. People will ask me, well, Lindley Street was witnessed by so many people, and it's so well documented. How come it's not more famous than Amityville Horror? And I'm like, well, this family didn't go on a countrywide publicity tour like they did. You know what I mean? They left their kids at home and were on national talk shows and stuff. You know what I mean? This family wasn't. They wanted to be left alone.
Yeah.
And so if the one that's marketed is the one that wins, and then of course Jay Anson's a great writer, and and the movie is it's off the charts, and of course we all know this isn't really I haven't investigated Amityville, but it's actually classified as a poltergeist, which if you look at...
I find that actually weird, because really, strictly speaking, it was a murder, wasn't it? No,
the family afterwards, and I mean, if you look at it, you had a dysfunctional... forget the murdered people, but the new people that lived in,
they were dysfunctional as hell.
Oh yeah, so I mean, it was the perfect... environment for a poltergeist, but we all know that what happened in the book and movie is, if it was real in any case, it was not what was in the book and movie at all.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's real because I don't know. I know Paul Eno, who I trust with my life. I know he worked with the Warrens for a little bit until his views changed, because he didn't believe everything was a demon like they did, So he split from them. But Ed Warren treated him like a son, and because he was 21-year-old seminary student when he was hanging around with them, and and he said Ed swore that Amityville was real. He said it just wasn't active enough to be giving people what they wanted from the book and movie. You know what I mean? He said that later on with the book, and that's not what it was. It was purported to be a poltergeist, and in which case you're going to go and sit there and nothing's going to happen, and
So what he did was basically take this low-level poltergeist activity and glorified it into the book and movie, so to speak.
Right. And that's if it's real at all.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's questionable even if
it's questionable because unfortunately, when you're making your living doing that, it's it's very tempting because you got this very big profile case, and if you say it's fake, you're not going to get any of the glory that comes with it, because that really was that put the Warrens on the map.
And then you got Zaffis that, riding the coattails of Ed Warren's nephew or something, or Lorraine's nephew, or I can't figure out. But you get people like that riding coattails. So I don't know.
Well, I know a funny story about John, and I hear he's a very nice guy. I don't know much.
Yeah,
about
I don't mean disrespect him, but at the same time, let's be honest.
Yeah. Now he was actually in the crowd at Lindley Street, going to Lorraine and begging to go inside, and she wouldn't let him because of course he was too young. But that's a funny story about Stafford. He wanted to go inside and see the action and was mad because she wouldn't let him go in because he was too young. But so that's my John Zaffis.
Have you with both your books, do you had any offers like for screenplays or anything like that?
I'm working on it. I've got some nibbles, so we're going to see if something works out. I have the right agents in place. I'd love to see both of them. Well, obviously, turned into something.
That's a gift.
Yeah, and hopefully it would be something that would be close to, the way I look at it is if somebody was embellishing a little, I'd probably be okay with it, knowing that, hey, the book is there. If you want to read what really happened, it's in the book. Who knows what, the way, even if they stick to the story, that the sounds are going to be more grand and, et cetera, it's just the way it is.
That's the way Hollywood works, basically.
Right.
Yeah, just look at the movie Annabelle, don't you, for that? It's a perfect example of the way they glorify things is in Hollywood is Annabelle.
Oh God, that doll!
Raggedy Ann doll. When you look at the original doll,
and they didn't even use it. Even in the movie, they didn't use the right doll.
No, they used this really creepy girl clown looking thing.
Yeah, and I don't think. But here's the thing: I don't think they would be able to use the original doll. I think was it Mattel or whoever owns Raggedy Ann? I bet you would sue the crap out of them.
Well, they probably have to get written permission, obviously, and it somehow subliminally advertises the doll. But,
but the problem is it could make children not want the doll, or parents not want to buy that doll for their children. So I think I think the reason they didn't use the doll, now granted maybe they would have anyhow because the one they used was creepier, but I think that they didn't use it because they wouldn't be able to. I know in the old days, I don't think it happens now because Parker Brothers kind of now really capitalizes on it, but I know Parker Brothers had sued. I think there was a movie called Ouija, or I forget. In the 80s or whatever. Yeah, in the 80s there were some movies, and Parker Brothers sued every time and got a settlement, and it was for portraying their game, in a negative light. And I think as the years went on, I think they probably weren't able to do that anymore because eventually, people are gonna say, "Come on, that's probably selling more of your game than anything else." But
it's free advertising. It's free advertising.
Right. But there was a time when they did sue and win. So, but I think in this case they would have Mattel. I believe it's Mattel would have a real case against the movie people for portraying their Raggedy Ann doll. Because seriously, parents would, I bet you, if they were creeped out by that movie, they wouldn't buy their kid a Raggedy Ann doll for sure.
So yeah, I completely agree with you because when you look at the actual original doll, it just basically looks like a typical girl's Raggedy Ann doll. You know what I mean? And you probably made thousands of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and, I have a hard time believing that there's, the whole thing about the museum and their home and stuff. I mean, if you had dangerous stuff, why would you put it all together like that and have it blessed? And it just seems like a bunch of crap to me.
Too hot, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just good fanfare. I know one of the items in the museum is not haunted at all, and there's a cross that shattered in the Lindley Street case, and that's in the museum. It's just a shattered item. Doesn't hold anything. It's just a broken cross. So.
Hey, I got a question about the Lindley Street. Did the family who moved in afterwards, did they experience anything that the one family did?
No, nobody before or after ever experienced anything, which would stand to reason. Well, unless you had, of course, another dysfunctional family, then I guess you could argue it certainly has the potential to happen again. But, as we know, Poltergeist being more of a haunted family than a haunted house. But
it's more of haunted mind kind of deal, yeah.
Right. But no. In fact, interesting fact is Bob Crane actually lived in that house at one time.
Hogan did?
Yeah, and he was a real idiot for me. He used to beat women and stuff, and I know
a big bastard actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I know people said, well, that's why it was haunted, because he lived there. So, he
probably, was an asshole.
Yeah, he probably opened the original portals, somebody said to me. So, it could be, but no, a little old Portuguese woman moved in afterwards, and she didn't know the story or anything, and she's lived there ever since, and in fact, she would call one of the neighbors because she thought people wanted to break in her house because they would go by and take pictures. Yeah. So, she didn't know. So, and the neighbor didn't know either until I stopped by, because I was, trying to get people to answer, does somebody live there? I was trying to get all the history and stuff, and he explained to me, and I told him the story, and he was like, well, that makes a lot of sense. Finally he knows why people are, taking pictures, because this poor lady thinks somebody wants to rob her. I mean, it's a tiny little house. I don't, like, what would she have? But but you get scared when you're older like that. So
do you think this is all just the state of Connecticut having a very good historical haunted background? With obviously there's got the haunting of Connecticut, which made into a movie, but the family moved into the old funeral parlour. You've got the two stories that you've wrote books about as well. Is there any other cases like around Connecticut, like whereby they can be just as big prolifically that we haven't heard about yet?
Well, Dudleytown, probably you've heard about. I haven't investigated that myself, but well, actually, I was there years ago, and it was just a bug-infested place where the Boy Scouts were camping out. So, but it's been closed off since, and I didn't have the right equipment or anything.
Just for the benefits of people who don't know about Dudleytown, can you give us a basic background on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dudleytown was a town that actually was. People basically built a town on top of a mountain or a hill, and there was mining there, and the women went crazy first, and people ended up moving away. A lot of people died, that sort of thing. And so there's two stories. One is that the place is quote unquote haunted, but the demise of the town is a little iffy, because they would say, well, crops won't grow there. Well, it's all rocky, so I wouldn't expect don't build a town on top of a hill like that. So when you talk about the crops wouldn't grow there, I could argue that's not things being evil. That's
geological standards.
Right. You're stupid. You tried to build a town on rock. And then the women went crazy first, they said, but from what I heard, that's because the men were in the mines, and so the women were affected by some of the soot and smoke and stuff that came out of the industry there. Mm-hmm. So it's, of course, the people writing that too could be biased against the, haunting, or, although it could be irrelevant. Doesn't really matter if it it could still be haunted just because it was, went under by.
Would you call it a modern day ghost town?
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, it used to be a forest preserve, and they had to close it all off thanks to the people after the Blair Witch Project came out. People were going to Dudleytown and littering and starting fires and all this crap. So the police had to really crack down on it. What's that?
Was that where the Blair Witch was based?
No, Blair Witch was in Maryland.
Oh.
That's right up the street from it. I can tell you where they filmed it and everything.
Yeah, it's not where they filmed it, but I guess it motivated interest in that area, and people started showing up there and partying and starting, making little bonfires and all that stuff, and so unfortunately they ruined it for all of us. And it used to be you could just go up there and walk down Dark Entry Forest Road, which is really cool. You can literally walk down the road, the main road in the town. It just looks like a trail because it's a horse and buggy road, but it was just a cool place to go. But unfortunately,
it's been destroyed by kids.
Right, Mark D'Antonio's been there with a metal detector. I always wanted.
That's what I was thinking about when you brought that up. I got to go get mine. I'm a geek. I'm a metal detecting geek. If I get the opportunity.
Yeah, so I mean, so he did find some things and stuff, but and he had an experience there, but he wasn't sure if it was due to him being excited or he wanted somebody else to. He was lowered into a well and he felt he had an experience, and he wanted one of the people that he was with to go down to validate it. I mean, this is how good of a scientist he is. He's like, I want to make sure that it's not me, so would somebody else go? I don't want you to tell you what I felt or whatever. I want you to go and just let me know, So he wanted other people to do it. Nobody would do it. So, when he told the story to me, he says, I can't tell you if it was real phenomena or if I was just excited or whatever because nobody else would do it. So unfortunately.
Have you ever thought about writing a book about it? I mean, Dudleytown itself. I mean, more from a historical perspective and to bring it to the present, kind of like, because it's got some stories. It has to have some great stories.
That's an idea. I know a group was trying to make a movie there, and I think they got arrested or something.
Again,
I'm
glad it wasn't me.
Yeah, it's just tough to get on that that land. I mean, I think Connecticut, because it has high water tables and sandy soils, and and it's near water and all that kind of thing. I think it does have a lot of haunted places. But the other thing is, it also has a lot of public hauntings. In other words, Ed and Lorraine Warren lived in Connecticut, so people would say to me, well, Connecticut seems to have a lot more hauntings than anywhere else. So, but Ed and Lorraine Warren were in Connecticut, so they were publicizing hauntings. So I don't necessarily think that, maybe we do, maybe we don't, but I think it's probably more the fact that you heard about more of them from Connecticut because they were lecturing on them and, whatnot. Whereas if you went to a place that didn't have people actively publicizing this stuff and lecturing on it, then you
have the same amounts or something more.
Right, and we know you never hear about most of these cases. I mean, Lindley Street, if it didn't get out, to the crowd, if there wasn't 2,000 people outside the house, it would have been another poltergeist case that really nobody knew about.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
I think a lot of it's with books and everything. It's been stolen by television. I think a lot of great stories out there are stolen by different shows like Paranormal Witness, and which I do watch. I do like that show because I like when people. I do like that one. That's one of the ones I'll sit and actually sit all the way through it and watch, or a haunting or something like that. I don't watch the ghost hunting shows anymore. I'm done with that crap. But
I can't watch them.
But I mean, I think TV has stole a lot of some of the better stories and put it about talking to people that have been on Paranormal Witness and different other shows like that. And I always ask, what percent of that was real and what percent of that did the production company kind of work their magic? He goes, and last person I talked to was Stephen LeChance, who was on Fear House on a haunting, and I asked him, I go, how much of that was real and how much of that was fake? He said about 85% was real, and then the 15% was them trying to make it spookier than what it really was and stuff. But I think TV in modern media has done damage to what people like you are doing and others, who are actually putting, pen to paper or on the computer and actually creating a book. Because it's more fun to read a book than something on Kindle. It's just, to me, a book. I will not read I will not read Kindle. I got to read it from a book.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm that way too. I mean, I suppose I'm not a big fiction reader. If I read fiction, then I guess you could argue that fiction on a Kindle is probably not bad. Mm-hmm. But for nonfiction, it's then it gets to be to me, I like to be able to flip and refer back to things.
Yeah.
So I prefer and of course, especially if it's my book, I prefer.
Yeah. you can by all means plug away, Bill. This is your spot.
I know. Plug your book, Bill. That's why I'm here, dude.
Well, I mean, sure. Anybody can go to my website at williamjhallauthor.com. I'd love to send you a signed copy of the book, or either of the books. And there's some free stuff there. Also has my calendar of where I'll be appearing and whatnot. I wish I could go farther, but it's hard to. The paranormal doesn't pay well unless you're on TV faking stuff.
Yeah. That is so true. You're not in it for the money, man. I can tell you right now.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's done well, and I'm happy about it. But of course, you never start any of this for the money.
What was the name of your website again, Bill?
williamjhallauthor.com.
Okay, Steve's gonna pull it up.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bill, I think are you hitting any Paracons or anything else like that coming up, or you've been?
I'm hitting. Let's see. I mean, I may do the Parafest next year. I can't do it this year, but I'm hitting a few places. Unfortunately, probably not near you. Definitely not near Mo. Sorry, Mo. I'd like to, because everybody has accents like Mo. So.
See, I'm the lone American. I'm like the lone Yank here.
I know, you just.
I mean,
you just sound like me.
I kind of take that as a compliment because I'm from the same city. So.
There you go. Yeah, I just figure he's going to burst into a Beatle or Oasis song or something. So that's what's in my mind. But I remember when I was little, I thought anybody who had an English accent could sing the Beatles perfect. Boy, how wrong that is! It's so wrong. Yeah. So wrong. Anyhow, I'm going to be at the Exeter UFO conference, which is ExeterUFOFestival.org. I'm going to be there. That's a great time for anybody who's within that area. The other. Let's see. The New England UFO conference I'll be at, too, as far as conferences. That's in Leominster, Mass. I think I'm saying that right.
Okay.
And all my other appearances are on, there's mostly Connecticut, New Hampshire, and Mass.
Where do you live? What state do you live in, Bill? I forgot.
Connecticut.
Connecticut, okay.
Yeah. Connecticut.
You're a true Yankee, as I'd like to say.
Yeah. I know. Do they still call you Yankee when you go down south? God,
I was called a Yankee. I was called a Yankee by my girlfriend from Missouri. She lives in the Boot Hill of Missouri, called me a Yankee, and then I found out she was actually her roots go to Connecticut. I'm like, no. Who's the real Yankee now? We were invaded. Who's the real Yankee? Funny. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was funny. But anyhow, look, Connecticut is beautiful. I mean, I think as a state, I mean, for anybody that
it is. Yeah, it is.
It's a beautiful state because it's away from New York. Anything away from New York is good for me. Minus upstate New York, which is beautiful. But
upstate New York. Yeah, I mean, and of course, I don't get to the city much. I like the fact that at least if you want to go to the city, around Christmas or shopping or that's cool that you're close enough where you can get there, which is cool. But I
would like to live there though permanently.
Yeah, I mean, I love Connecticut. Taxes are bad. That's and then of course we have the winter. What are you gonna do?
You got a great infrastructure though. That's what's good about Connecticut. The infrastructure is I've heard it's like really well taken care of, which is a good thing. Versus other places. I get taxed like crazy down here, so.
Oh, really?
Down in Maryland, so yeah, we get nailed. So, what can you do? It's life.
Yeah, right.
But Bill, I mean, what I want to get you out. When you get a camera, all right, I'm gonna keep going. Bill, you got a camera. Bill, did you get a camera? Bill, did you get a camera? To the point where Bill's like. I had to block Kurt today because he was stalking me.
I just got Skype a year ago. No.
When the
first book came out, they're like, "Do you Skype?" And I'm like, "What's that?" I felt like I was 200 years old, and then I'm like, oh, now I go to other people. What do you mean you don't Skype? What are you, an idiot? No.
Yeah, what are you slow or something?
Yeah, right.
I want you to come on and do some spoon bending tricks. If you can do it, just like a half hour, we'll film it, and then we'll just put it on our YouTube thing, and we'll put your thing in where your haunted diaries and all that. If you could come on and pull some like creepy magic trick, would you be up for doing that?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that would be so cool.
Well, the fact that it's me would make it creepy, but that's
no. You're not creepy, Bill. But you got the mentality to do something like this, and where a lot of people don't. And this is what's perfect. I'd love to have you on and just sit there quietly and watch you do a spoon bending and do some other things, just because you don't see that anymore. And plus, that's what you spent a lot of your life doing. I mean, I'd love for you to come on and do that if you'd be willing. I'm asking if you'd be willing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to put clothes on for that show.
Oh, it's okay. I'm making some pants down anyway.
That's why you don't have a camera.
Yeah, I was supposed to say
that. But how cool would that be, though? And just have people watch that live, watch how it's done, because we've seen it. Like Steve and I probably see it on YouTube, or some other thing. But to see it live being done, I think it would just grab an audience, especially because you're into the paranormal. And also the fact you could do this stuff, just a few minutes of sleight of hand stuff, or this or that, just enough to throw people off would be awesome, because it'd be something so different, I mean, than what's being put out. Plus it'd be fun. Plus get it up on YouTube and get a bunch of hits too, because we can advertise all your books. So I mean, it's like a win-win situation.
Yeah.
What do you think, Steve-O?
I think it was a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Now I got to figure out the camera.
Oh no! Don't worry about that. Just go to Best Buy.
Kate's got plenty of GoPros there, mate. I'm sure he can lend you one.
Oh, let's not talk about my fetish, Steve. I thought that was private.
No.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be private, but you keep making it public.
I have a fetish, Bill, and I just see what Steve's talking about is GoPro cameras. I mean, I have, how many do I have? I have 4 GoPros and a fake GoPro. I was going over them last night to look in the batteries. I wanted to charge the battery.
Your new fetish is trail cams, isn't it, or something?
Yeah, I have 3 trail cams. I gave one away to Lynette.
You can go looking for Bigfoot or something like that?
Well, I don't know, dude. I don't know. I'll put them in the house. I put them where I work.
You don't know, dude.
Where I work at, Bill, is a museum, one of the places I work at, and I'm a weekend coordinator at one place. It's a house that was built in 1815, had slave quarters and this and that, and it's notoriously haunted. Whether it is or not, I don't know. But I'm trying to allow them to get me in there to do an investigation. But my only worry is they won't let me post it up on Facebook. Not Facebook, but on YouTube under Beyond the White Noise. I mean, I could have that house wired within 2 to 3 hours, set up, ready to go, and stuff like that. But yeah, supposedly it's haunted. I love it because of the history. I'm a history geek, so
right.
And Steve's a conspiracy geek, so I mean, you know, that's the way we are. It's how we basically roll and stuff like that. But yeah, I love. Go ahead, Bill.
No, I was going to say that's what I love about this farmhouse, because it's kind of like a test center where you can go. It's like a shopping mall for the paranormal, and you could just go there, and you're always going to, as Ben Eno said, I used his quote in the book. Every time you go there, you use something new, and so you could always get EVPs or photos as long as you set it up long enough. Matter of fact, we have to get there again because we want to do more stuff, and I can picture more things on the bonus page. In fact, there were some more diary entries there's a bonus page with the book, and there's some videos and photos, and there's an entity that we even caught on video.
Whoa!
Yeah.
What'd you catch? What would you catch?
Oh, it's the grandson. Is a grandson years ago. He's 10 now, but when he was 3, 4, when he was, even before he could walk, he was toddling over and paying a lot of attention, like he was engaged, talking to somebody or listening.
Okay.
And they'd pick him up and bring him back in the living room and stuff. And then as he started talking, he would say Ashwar. And later on, he would say Ashwar, and he would explain that Ashwar is a friend of his, and Ashwar is a little girl in a blue dress, which right there, it's always a little girl in a blue dress, so it's not really a little girl in a blue dress. That seems to be that's their go-to disguise, whatever these things are, it's like little girl in a blue dress. It's always sometimes a yellow dress.
The older the woman gets in spirit, it's like a black Victorian dress or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They get confused sometimes. They don't know what time they're in. Yeah. But so he says this little girl in a blue dress is with her mother, got in a car accident, and now she's stuck here to observe in the tree being the big tree in front of the house. Okay. And so he starts putting toys around this tree. And they're like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm putting toys out for Ashwar. So Paul Eno, back in 2010, because he started this investigation in 2005, so it was wonderful. He brought me in, and it was kind of nice because there was this whole history, and of course I know him, and we're best of friends, so I know it is legit and everything. So he's got this long history to this, which of course made it very nice for me to come in. But in 2010, he goes there and he's talking to the grandson about this Ashwar, and he says, well, is Ashwar here now? And the little kid says, yes. He says, well, where is Ashwar? Oh, Ashwar is he's up in he's up in the tree, and he points out the window. Says, yeah, Ashwar is right there. She's up in the tree. And so he takes his infrared camera and he goes out, and it's like pitch black outside, and he films up into the tree, and he captures this. It looks like a tadpole / serpent that comes down and then goes into a mist. And in fact, listeners could see that one on YouTube at the Haunted House Diaries, and then put a space and put Ashwar, Ashwar, and you can see that actual film.
Oh, that's cool.
It's really bizarre, and
in fact, I'll add that to one of our playlists.
And what was really cool about it too is then I found this guy Greg Harrell from, I believe, Florida, and back in the 70s, he was trying to catch vandals and set up a infrared recorder, and was recording, I think about 2 years or so. He was recording these things that look like Ashwar. And his guess is they're aliens, or and he's observed their behavior and stuff. So I interviewed him and included that in the chapter on Ashwar. But and on the bonus page, there's actually a film of the grandson on a rocking horse pointing up to the ceiling and trying to pronounce Ashwar, and it's so creepy because not knowing at the time you wouldn't make the connection, but now going back. Now seeing this, it looks like the first time that he's talking about and pointing up at the ceiling, trying to say, Ashwar. But that's the kind of creepy things that happen in the house. It's just, never did anything evil. It was never, that's why I say, and the family doesn't have that kind of point of view of, they don't assume that, if there's banging in a wall, it's a demon, or they're not wired that way, and so to them, were they a little, they didn't encourage Ashwar at the time. They knew there was phenomena in the house. They didn't encourage it, but they've had, Donna's daughter Michelle was kept entertained and not crying by some invisible thing, which later on seemed to be an ancestor, because she correctly identified an ancestor in a picture that she would have never saw a picture of him, and she said, "Oh yeah, he used to play with me when I was in my crib." And so Donna looks at her like, "What the?" So these are the kinds of things. Some of the things the children have said. There was one instance they're riding the car, and Michelle in the back seat says, "Before I was your baby," and she goes into this long story. And it, freaked Donna out. And it was not in a different voice. It was her voice, but it was just so much, it was more serious than you would expect for somebody that age, and using words. That's the other thing, like when the grandson, and with the grandson, his name's in the book, but I try not to use his name all the time because he's a real kid. But he had, when he described later on what kind of car it was, I think it was like a 56 Oldsmobile, I don't know, I have it in the book, and when he described the way the accident happened, and, it was like just very detailed, like not something that a small 4-year-old should be like, they shouldn't be talking that way, just like stuck in the tree to observe. Observe is not the kind of word that you would use also at that age. I barely use it now.
That's a big word. That's a big word.
It's just an odd, way of speaking. So there's just, Donna kept this diary for 50 years. She started when she was a teenager. And, of course, it's not every day or anything, but it was really cool because when I first met her, she gave me a binder of it typed up or something, and she took me aside and said, Mr. Hall, I don't want you to think that I just typed this up. I want to show you the papers. And she brings out this big old box, and it's filled with these things on all different kinds of paper. Yellow paper, notebook paper, envelopes, little note paper, just all different kinds of paper, different kinds of pens. Some are dated, some are not. And so it was a bear putting it together, but and a lot of work on Donna's part too. But and that's how the diary was built. And then I interviewed all the family separately, and expanded on the diary to try, because there's things in there that naturally you'd ask questions. So I was trying to get those kind of answers to what I would have as a question to try to make it better for the reader. What would I ask if I was a reader? And then, so that's part one of the book, and part two is about the other stuff happening in the area. The Bigfoot experience, the UFOs, the potential for the secret base, and then the third part, one of my favorite parts, is the discussion. Discussing, what could this be? Or, what about when this happened? What do you think of that? And having Paul Eno give his point of view, and Shane Searway give his point of view, and, just some things that it could be. And 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 then Mark contributing his experience nearby in part 2, and in part 3 talking about what spirits are or aren't, or what they could be. And so I think it's got a nice variety. That's why I enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Bill, we're getting ready to wrap up.
Getting some serious feedback.
Yeah, we're getting feedback here.
Oh.
Do you got your speakers on? Okay. Okay, we're getting ready to wrap up right now.
Okay.
Anything you want to say, Bill? I want to thank you very much for coming on the show. And Steve and I totally appreciate it. I can't wait to get a hold of this book. I am going to knock it out in one setting, I promise. And of course, then I'm going to stalk. Of course, I'm going to stalk you then with questions. So that's the next. That's the bad part about sending me.
Could you find some pretty girls to stalk me for
that? Yeah, I won't stalk you. I'll
chances will be. You'll fake Facebook friend me, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be a hottie though. It'll be a hottie, I promise.
Oh yeah, with no friends and one profile picture. Right?
Exactly. That's gonna be it. That's me.
Right. No, I would just like to thank you guys, and of course thank all the listeners and readers, because of course without them I'm just talking to myself, which I do enough of anyhow. So.
Well, Bill, we appreciate it, man.
All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you guys for joining in with Bill Hall. Buy his book, The Haunted House Diaries. Definitely worth checking out. And on that note, we are out of here.
So until next time, take it easy.
Yep.